everyone. Today we have with us Advocate Arihant Singh. He's working as a compliance program manager at Microsoft Corporation India Pvt. He has extensive experience in handling legal compliance and regulatory affairs of the entire Asia Pacific region. He has also worked as a forensic and integrity legal consultant at Ernst Young India LLP, where he successfully delivered numerous end-to-end contract lifecycle management projects for clients from various industries. Prior to this, he worked as a senior legal associate at Elevate Services and as a legal associate at SMA Legal. Mr. Singh has a PGDBM degree from Narsee Monjee Institute of Management Studies and a B.A.LLB degree from the Army Institute of Law. Some of his skills include contract management, legal and business compliance, due diligence, drafting and reviewing of contracts, applications, petitions, and policies. He's also experienced in forensic investigations, fraud investigation, and regulatory compliance. We welcome you, sir.
I'm really happy to be here.
Sir, what inspired you to pursue a career in law, and what made you interested in this particular field of law?
I guess as a kid, I was always fascinated by the legal system in our country, and I don't know if it's a bit sadistic, but I always wanted to make people be accountable for their actions, in a way. If you see someone doing bad, you want to make sure that they're accountable for their actions, right? So I think growing up, all these things about these legal system were probably ingrained in my professional DNA, so to speak, right? So when I started pursuing my law from Army Institute of Law, and I realized that it would give me a good platform, to explore the opportunities, because growing up, people used to always tell me that back in the days that there's only litigation. Litigation is the only way going forward if you want to make a career as a lawyer. But when I joined law school, my eyes were wide open. There were so many different possibilities. You could do, you can make your career in corporate. You could be a good litigator. You could probably even join the army as a JAG officer. So that was one of an eye-opening experiences for me. And I found myself to be drawn more towards the corporate side of the industry, because something about, saving my clients from business risks and, not complying with the strategies and the policies just seemed like a good job. So I'm really grateful that I'm able to make a career out of it. And yeah, I'm hoping to help more clients navigate through, the muddy waters of compliances and regulatory and statutory side of our business, right? Definitely.
Right. And how did you prepare for the interview with Microsoft? What resources did you use? And how,
I get that question.
Yeah, how did you tailor your preparation for the specific role and company?
I get that question a lot of these times, especially from the people in my college, that how did you prepare for your Microsoft interview? Because obviously, one of the biggest problems.
Yes, but yes.
Right. So definitely you have to conduct a thorough research about what's going on. And there's only so much you can learn from being an outsider, right? You can go through LinkedIn publications, you can read news articles, you can read published articles about these companies, but unless and until you know someone in the industry who's worked with similar tech giants, you won't be able to get a hands-on, right? So obviously, first of all, the first and foremost thing you do is you do your own research. And then the second most important thing is you find your contacts, right? Maybe not someone in the Microsoft per se, but you can there's a blanket rule when it comes to these big organizations. Most of them, they follow similar policies and practices. So you maybe get in touch with someone who's already worked in a tech giant. If we're just talking about Microsoft, right? Yeah. So find someone who's worked in a tech giant and ask them what was their experience and what was their interview process and what the questions can be expected from someone who's already in that role, right? Ask them that if I am interviewing for this role, what are the requirements from me for this role to be successful in this role? So yeah, I think that was one of the biggest challenges, tailoring your responses according to the needs of the interviewer, because it's like a mind game you're playing with. He's trying to crack you and you're trying to crack the interview. So yeah, something like that. Right. And they'll ask you one of the biggest things that I've learned is from my interviews is whenever they give you a case study, just be very thorough with it, right? Don't try to just skim over any of the facts or the basics of that case study, because that is something they look for, definitely. Like big stakeholders, big organizations, they don't want you to skip any part of a case study. Like for example, if you're doing it professionally, you can't skip over any of the minute details because that might come back and bite you in the back. So they provided me the case study, and it was very interesting because now AI is all the rage, right? ChatGPT, OpenAI, and all that. So Microsoft asked me, like, in the next 5-10 years, there's going to be a lot of use of AI. And this is way back in September when ChatGPT, no one knew about ChatGPT, right? So they asked me, like, for example, if 5-10 years down the line, we have compliances integrated in virtually everything. Can you come up with some compliance policies that will be a blanket rule for all the organizations? So yeah, I took my time, made 3-4 compliance policies related to AI, showed them, and thankfully they were impressed, and now I'm here.
Great. And as you said that you gave them, you took your time, then how did you demonstrate your experience and skills in licensing and compliance during the interview? Were there any specific questions or exercises that allowed you to showcase your expertise?
Yeah, so exactly like I was talking about that AI study, right? One of them was that. Other thing that they asked me specifically regarding the investigations and the compliances was, how do you perform, let's say, a gap analysis? Well, what a gap analysis is, they give you an organization and they give you a list of policies that they are already adhering to. And then you have to map it with the policies they should be adhering to, right? You have to mitigate the risk. Like these are the policies they are already following, and these are the policies that they should be following. So in gap analysis, what you do is you'll take up policies which these clients are not following, and you'll try to assign them a risk factor. Like if they're not following this policy, the risk is very high. Not following this policy, the risk is minutely low. So one of these things came across during the interview, and I think my short stunt with EY prepared me a lot for the Microsoft interview, because over there I was just score into investigations and compliances. So thankfully, thank you EY for giving me that background, so I could just clear the interview and bring those skills to the table at Microsoft. Yeah, definitely.
Can you discuss any unique qualities or strengths that you believed helped you stand out as a candidate for the role at Microsoft? How did you communicate those qualities during the interview?
I think one of my, I don't want to boast it, right? So just warning you about all that. None of this is supposed to be like self-glorifying or anything like that. It's something that I've observed, that I have a good ability to analyze complex legal or business risk situations, right? So, and when I am providing a feedback, say to the client or a stakeholder, or maybe even my colleagues, my juniors, I'll try to dumb it down as much as I can. Because, for example, like if I'm conducting an investigation, say, for example, in Korea, English isn't their first language. English isn't even their second language, right? Sometimes. So, and a lot of the people are not from the legal background, right? So you want to make them understand everything as clearly as they can. Otherwise, if different people from the same team are seeing the picture differently, you'll never achieve your end goal, right? So I think that is one of my biggest strengths, that I am able to like analyze very complex situations and then break them down into different simpler aspects, and then collaborate. I am very collaborative. I would like to believe that. Yeah, I am collaborative. So my team, like, they are always very happy to just, I wouldn't say have me around, because that's like a bit of a stretch. But yeah, they have, like, in my opinion, so far, I think the teams I've worked with, they have been very supportive of my objectives, and I've been very supportive of their objectives as well. So one of the best things you can ingrain in your probably competencies is be collaborative, because legal field is a collaborative field, right? You can only go so far solo. That's what I believe.
True, sir. True, sir. And can you describe your experience working as a compliance program manager at Microsoft? And what are some of the key responsibilities associated with this role?
Oh, Microsoft is amazing. I love the office. I love the environment. It's a very supportive environment. Touchwood, like right from the upper management to the directors, or maybe even the juniors or the assistants who work for you, with you. I'm sorry. So they are very supportive. And everyone wants to see you grow in this organization. That's one of the things that like I love about this organization. So yeah,
That's
so
rare.
I'm responsible. Yeah, that's very rare. That's a rare find. Yeah, I think I struck the like corporate lottery here with Microsoft, definitely. So what I do is like my job profile is basically dealing with the compliances and investigations across the Asia Pacific region, right? So some of the responsibilities they include like developing and implementing compliance policies and procedures across Asia. And for every region, you have to know about the requirements of that particular region to make a policy tailor-made for that specific region. For example, markets in India might have different requirements than markets in Japan or maybe say China. So you have to tailor-make those policies and procedures so that they're a bit like easy to understand and easier to be compliant, right? Another thing is making sure that all the different organs of our business are complying with the laws, right? See, I feel that compliance is like a very thankless job. Like if you're following all the compliances, good job. No pats on your back, no awards for that. But if you're not complying with even the minute ones, and if that backfires, suddenly you're in the firing line, you're in the spotlight. Like, how could you miss this?
Right.
So yeah, definitely that's one of the cases that I feel like one of the responsibilities that I have is making sure that we're all on the same page and we're always strictly complying with at least the internal policies and then the external policies, right? Yeah, it's a challenging, but it's a very rewarding experience.
Right. And as you were telling in the beginning about your research and resources, how did you develop your expertise in software licensing and compliance? What resources did you rely on to stay up to date with industry trends and regulations?
I think this is a very cliched answer. And so apologies if people don't agree with me on that, but formal education is really important. Or if you even if you want to understand what compliance is or what's a software licensing contract is, you need to have some sort of formal education. So yeah, stay in college, yeah, something like that. So yes, that is very important. Formal education, obviously, hands-on experience, obviously. My experience with Elevate, where I used to work with all sorts of contracts, software licensing contracts, software as a service contracts. They prepared me for my role with EY, where I was negotiating these contract terms and making sure that the other organizations are, you know, you have two parties when you're negotiating through a contract, right? And a contract cannot be a win-lose contract. That contract is absolutely null and void. So it is our task to make sure that someone across the table is respectful and considerate of your needs from that contract, while at the same time you have to be respectful and considerate of their needs. So that is one of the things I think EY, hats off to them. They gave me such a great groundwork, like in the mud, they say, right, through the weeds, going through the weeds and sticking your hands in the mud, that kind of experience. And I think a lot of people are missing out on that because, yeah, I would say that the system has gone a bit soft. No harsh feelings regarding that. The system has gone a bit soft, but if you want to move anywhere in this industry without thinking that you might just skip over the weeds or just not do the dirty work, yeah, you're not fooling anyone, you're just fooling yourself. So yeah, definitely that. And I think after law school, I worked with a lot of clients which involve like negotiation skills and interpersonal skills and collaborative skills. So all these things, you might not realize them, but when it comes to the right moment, these all just come together and they work for you very well. So stay well informed.
Right. Uh, how do you approach your role as a mentor to the legal team members, and how do you provide guidance to help them grow in their career?
See, I don't know if you can see that, but I'm kind of fairly young in this industry. Please don't let my CV fool you. I'm like, yeah, I have like just a little over 6 years of experience, and I think probably because of my work ethic and probably my performances, I usually end up in a mentor kind of a role, even in EY. So, like in SMA Legal and in Elevate, I was like an associate and a senior associate, but when I moved to EY, they wanted to put me in a bit of a elevated platform, right? So that I'm not just working for myself, I am also responsible for the work other people do under me. So I think that's mostly because of and that can only happen if you're hardworking, if you have some work ethics, and if you're honest towards your work. So I think, yeah, just try to justify these responsibilities. And in my experience, mentoring has been about building relationships, collaborative relationship built on mutual trust, expectations, and be honest about your expectations from the team, and tell them what you expect from them, and ask them what they can expect from you, and be honest and be truthful and be respectful. And I think these things just come to you as you progress slowly in the industry, right? Another, I think, very important aspect of mentoring for me would be to provide constructive feedback. Like, for example, if you
Like constructive criticism.
No, like criticism can never be constructive. I don't think so. Like, if you're criticizing someone, like what happens in most of these organizations, I won't take any names, but what happens is, like, your team lead would probably come to you and say, like, yeah, aaj sahi kaam nahi kiya, you didn't do your work properly, and you know what? It's okay. Next time, do your job properly and all that. And you go home, you open your laptop, and there's a huge mail escalation. Like, this is what is expected out of you, and this is what you've done. These are the errors, and 20 people are CC'd in that email. So I don't think that sort of criticism is going to help anyone. Like, you'll feel probably a bit cheated. Yeah. Like, you just talked to me in the office, and you were telling me that this is not a big deal, and when I'm coming home, this is like a full-on escalation, right? So I like, whenever I am giving any feedback, I make sure that I'm very polite. I like keep my tone down a little bit. Like, right now, I am very respectful. I tell them that these are the expectations, and if you're facing any problem, just the doors are always open. Like, Microsoft has like an open door policy, right from junior associate to the fucking president. Oh, sorry. I think that sort of environment, and I don't think you can just have that sort of environment in an organization, right? You have to cultivate that sort of environment. It has to be ingrained in the DNA of the structure, like structure of the organization. So I think that helps people a lot. Definitely help me. Like, I am the youngest person in this office, Gurgaon office. I'm probably the youngest attorney in Microsoft India. And I, like, for the first 2 weeks, I was walking in the office like a zombie. I had no idea who was who's reporting to who, because the structure is a matrix. And by the time you try to understand the structure, it is evolved. Like, good organizations and great organizations, they're always evolving. So the minute you think you've understood something, it's evolved into something else. So it's very important to have that bond with your seniors or your juniors, so that they can come up to you like, boss, I'm having trouble with this. Can you help me out? And I'm more than happy to help out my like juniors or even my seniors for that matter. Yeah.
Can you walk us through your experience with contract negotiation and drafting? What are some key skills you rely on to negotiate effectively and create strong contracts?
The biggest aspect of when it comes to negotiating contracts and the terms of the contracts is having effective communication, right? If the communication is not clear, and if the clients or your even own client or the other stakeholders, they don't understand what you're trying to convey to them, it's gonna end up really messy. So definitely, effective communication is one of the most critical aspects. I think collaboration, another very big aspect. Obviously, legal industry is a collaborative industry. Without collaborations, you're not going anywhere. And attention to detail, like, that is absolutely a must when it comes to writing contracts. Like, even a comma, like they used to teach us in law school that even a comma can either send your client to jail or probably send you to jail. So just be very specific, attention to detail. And I don't think like people make a big deal these days about these things, that, oh, he's an expert in drafting contracts. Like, all that is good, but this is like the basics. Drafting and understanding contracts is like the basics of law. And I think every lawyer, every person who's calling himself a lawyer should be very familiar with these things. Yeah.
How do you stay up to date with the latest regulations and laws in the field of compliance? And what strategies do you use to ensure that your team is aware of these changes?
I think the best way to stay informed about all these changes and latest regulations and laws is by going through the industry publications, probably. And the best way, like, I would definitely feel the best way to stay up to date is by reviewing publications and just having an idea of what's going on in the entire world, right? And that definitely helps me stay up to date and like on my toes to understand what's going on in the legal field. And the second, I think, most important way to be updated is obviously again by your connections, right? If you have a circle of maybe like from my point of view, if you have a circle of lawyers who are in different fields and you get together, don't talk about like nonsense, right? Talk about relevant things, what's going on in their industry, what's going on in your industry, right? So I think that's one of the ways that I think lawyers in the Indian community, that's how they stay up to date even now. Like they get together and they talk. And I think that's one of the best ways also to stay up to date with the latest things going on in different fields of law. But if you're talking strictly about tech side, there are very different sorts of publications and communities you can join. Like for example, Microsoft is part of the BA.LLB ethisphere. It's a business ethics and leadership alliance. So what happens is top, for example, top 50 of these huge tech companies, they'll come together, they'll pool in their resources. And every week there's like an article published related to some aspects of the industry, right? What are the compliances happening in one particular industry? What are the new compliances that might be happening in the other industry? So yeah, that's one of my sources to stay up to date with the latest regulations. And when it comes to my team, what I try to do is Microsoft is like huge on offering like internal training programs. And what we do is whenever we feel like there is a need for a refresher or maybe there's something new going on in the industry, we'll just write to our like respective head of the organization, maybe say directors, that there is a new requirement. We have come across some new legislations that might be relevant to the industry, and we want to like maybe formulate a training module or a program, and they'll just pass on the word and we'll get a training module, and then the entire team will go through that training module together and maybe conduct maybe like a case study or an exercise. That's how we like keep everyone in the same space and make sure that everyone is on the same page. Yeah. The audio is not working.
Okay, we'll cut it. Sorry. Can you walk us through your typical workflow from initial case review to final resolution?
So you can't treat all the cases similarly. Every case is a different case. That's what they say in law, that you have to treat every case separately. So yeah, I don't think that it is possible for anyone to tell you like what are the specifics that go on in a particular case. But yeah, I can give you a gist of how we go about things here. So definitely when you're handed an investigation file, what you do is you thoroughly review the case. Every detail. You read it once, you read it twice, you read it 5 times until you're like familiar with the names of the relatives. Like that's what the term we use. Like you have to be so thorough that you can probably name the relatives of the people involved. So that's how much you have to be thorough with these investigations. So what will like this sounds like a bit ridiculous way to put things, but what it will do to you is it'll give you a very comprehensive understanding of the people and the risks involved in this particular case, right? And I think that is the best way to go about these things. That's the only way you'll be able to understand the client's situation and his objectives or whatever goals he's trying to achieve, right? If it's a like investigation, you'll get to understand that why this person did what he did. And if it's like a collaborative project, maybe if it's a contract related project where you have to draft maybe compliance policies or maybe contracts, certain contracts for the clients, you'll be able to understand what the client wants from these contracts, right? So I think that is one of the best ways to go about is just thoroughly review whatever material you have. Then you go on researching the legal aspects of your case, like what are the legal implications affecting your case and what can be the legal challenges that will come out of this, maybe say a contract or an investigation. So different cases, different scenarios, yeah, something like that. So one of the best things to do is you draft everything that you do, right? Keep a tab on whatever you're doing so that you're not running around in circle. And that is, I don't know what your experience has been in the legal industry. I think that's very prevalent. Like people keep running around in circle, they're chasing the same facts, chasing the same compliances, they, and they're not going anywhere with it unless and until you have like an idea of what are the procedures you need to follow. So definitely that, keep a tab on what your progress is. That definitely helps. And once you think that the case is resolved and all the necessary documentation is done, I think it's up to you and the client to, discuss any outdated issues or maybe outstanding issues. So that is the easy part. The most difficult part is analyzing, the legal and factual issues and working with clients to develop a strategy that works for the best of his interests. So yeah, that is the most challenging aspect, and I think that is the most rewarding aspect as well. Clients coming and thanking you that, Bachalia, like that. So that is really rewarding.
Right. And how is your previous experience working as a forensic and integrity consultant has worked for you as a compliance program manager?
EY was like, and I'm not exaggerating this at all. Like EY probably gave me a platform which led me to here where I am right now in Microsoft. So yeah, all good things about EY. So the office, like the EY experience is like they say, it's like stays with you for a lifetime, right? It's what they say when you enter EY, that no matter where you go after this, you'll always be one of us. So I think, yeah, respect. I really respect that. One of the best things that I developed as a role, I was performing in EY, forensics and integrity investigating consultant. So we had to conduct very thorough and accurate investigations. So by collecting and analyzing large amount of data and identifying patterns in those data, you are able to, if there is something wrong, if there is like a blink of fraudulent activity, once you've combed through that data again and again, you'll be able to identify that links. Like there are so talented people working in EY. You give them charts and charts and sheets, and within minutes they'll be able to find out this pinpoint that this is something that's not right. Right. So one of those skills that I developed while working in EY is still useful here. Another important skill that I probably honed in that role was ability to communicate complex issues. Like I previously said that lawyers, when they talk about legal issues, they use a lot of fancy terms. Probably goes over your head, still goes over mine sometimes, right? So what that did was, like, when I was working with EY, I had to deal with a lot of clients from non-legal backgrounds, and they did not understand absolutely any of the legal terminology, or maybe abbreviations or the fancy terms we use in the code of law. Nothing. So and they used to tell me that picture yourself in their shoes, and if you think like if you think they'll be able to understand whatever is going out of your head, just dumb it down into 10 times and then give them the information, right? Dumbing down the information can have no negative impact. Like that's what I learned in EY. The better you're able to communicate your issues and your objectives across, the better they'll be able to help. The clients also will be able to help you significantly more, right? So effective communication was very critical, ensuring that everyone involved in the team as well as in the case was on the same page. So definitely. And what else? I think I conducted a lot of regulatory compliance projects as well. So that is still helpful here in Microsoft because my basic area right now is investigations and compliances. So yeah, definitely want to thank EY for giving me that platform to just hone my skills, and now I'm getting a platform to showcase my skills. So very happy for that.
And what are some of the biggest challenges that you face as a compliance program manager, and how do you overcome these challenges?
So the biggest, as a compliance program manager, the biggest probably challenge is trying to be up to date with all the compliance policies, right? Like we were talking before about ChatGPT and AI related compliance. Just an example, right? Uh, like 2, 3 months ago, no one would have heard of it. And suddenly now you wake up, everything is AI. everything is there. So yeah, definitely, like, you have to be on your toes. Whenever something new happens, you have to think about what are the legal implications of this newfound thing, and that helps. Yeah, these are one of the challenges, and if you are proactive, that will definitely help. I think one of the biggest challenges that I face, like apart from this, as a compliance program manager, is making sure that everyone in the office, like stakeholders, my team members, even the clients, they are compliant. Like, there are people who are non-compliant by nature. You can't have them around if you're a compliance program manager. So definitely, you have to make sure that everyone is complying to every single one of these policies, because, like I said before, uh, if you follow these compliances, everything is good and nobody questions you, nobody congratulates you, nobody gives you an award for that. But if you're not complying and even one of your team members slips up, suddenly the entire team is in limelight. Like, and because they start tracing it, like, if this is where it starts, it's like a thread, like investigation thread. You start, you know, tracing its steps, like, where else does this go? So yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges. And I think to overcome this challenge, I work very closely with the members of my team. We are like a small knit group, and that is despite the fact that there are only two of us in India. Like, the rest of my team is sitting in Singapore. Some of them are sitting in Korea. Some of them are sitting in China. Some of them are somewhere else, Indonesia. Despite the distance, we are a very close knit team, right? Whatever happens in the team, like, if any one of them is facing any issue, like, we have our own like team channel, and if there is any issue going on in any of the regions or any of the projects, I'll be the first to know. And the entire team is then, just focused on one problem at a time, so that you know no one is left behind, right? That is the idea of having such team that is just like spread all across Asia Pacific.
Right. And what advice do you have for others who are interested in pursuing a career in compliance or forensic consulting?
Stay in college, complete your degree. Okay, apart from the jokes here, the first and foremost, I think, develop a strong foundation and understanding of the law. And I don't just mean read your bare acts or comb through CPC, like IPC or CRPC. Understand that why these regulations have been put in place, and understand, like, what is the impact of these regulations, right? It is very easy to, just swallow all the bare acts and, section numbers and what are the articles and all that. But if you don't know the practical applications of these laws, then you're just a newborn, like, as good as like, having zero experience in a field of law. So a very good understanding of the legal landscape is very important, and understand why are we having these compliances. Like, if there are no compliances, what are the repercussions? If there are compliances and they're not being met, then what are the repercussions? If there are compliances and they are being met, then what is the positive outcome of these compliances? So yeah, that will definitely help, and it will develop very important skills. Like, in like, if you're from a legal background, one of the biggest skills that you need to have is problem solving skill, right? You're given a problem, and no matter how big the problem is, you can't just shake your hands at it, right? You have to just break it like into individual different problems, and then come up with a collective solution. And I think, yeah, that's how I've been operating so far, and touch wood, so far so good.
Right. And lastly, but how effectively do you communicate with clients and colleagues, particularly when there are complex legal concepts involved?
Mm, so in my experience, especially while working with Microsoft, clients don't want Word documents or Excel sheets, right? If you give them data, just raw data, they'll probably not understand. They'll be just like rows, columns, columns, data, data. What is this? So you have to, if you're trying to, communicate complex legal solutions. For example, someone might come up to you and say, I want to understand what's the trend of investigations across Asia Pacific region, and within Microsoft. So you can't just give an Excel sheet key, this case is going on in this region, it is this old, these are the issues being faced by the teams. So the best way to do this is, and I can't stress this enough. If you're planning a career in corporate law, and if you're watching this, understand how to visualize your problems. If you are able to visualize your problems, and if you are able to put them across in a visual way to the stakeholders or to the clients, they will understand it way better than just raw data, right? So the most important thing would be understanding your audience. Understand your audience. If they're not from the legal background, if they're not from the tech background, they're just stakeholders and people who have an interest in the case. Try to dumb the information down as much as you can and try to make it like as concise and as clear. That will help you like see this starts as a simple like a project process. Like I was in one project, so I am tailor making my responses to this particular project. I move on to next project. So what my learnings from the previous project was like, I'll have to tailor make probably another sort of set of visual graphics pertaining to the data for this client. So what will help is you'll understand that every client has a different sort of need, and you'll be able to modify yourself according to the needs. So I think that's very important. Very, I think, apart from that, being as honest and truthful about the expectations, what you expect from the client, and being honest about how much you can provide back to them. Like there are probably organizations who would go like, yeah, these are your requirements, we'll meet them, this is the deadline, these are the deliverables, blah, blah, blah. And when the time comes, they'll be just like, sorry, can't do it. But if you're honest from the start, and if you're very clear about the objectives, and if you're clear about what you bring to the table, I think that in the long run, I think that's a lot more helpful to the clients and as well as your organization itself.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. You've been incredibly kind and generous with your time. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. We wish you all the best in whatever you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time, Ritu, and wish you all the best as well.
Thank you, sir.